Hello and welcome to the Energy On Show, the channel where everything revolves around your energy. I'm Dr. Cornelia Kavan, and in my show, I'm sharing all my powerful energy hacks with you. And sometimes I invite really inspiring and cool people to share their experience. And this is one of these episodes. And today I'm welcoming Heidi Hauer. Welcome, Heidi.
Hello, thank you for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to be here. And thank you, Cornelia.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you here. And Heidi and myself, we know each other, I think about for 2 years. We met at a mutual friend. And last Christmas, we were at the Christmas brunch invited, and there I talked with Heidi, and I also got her really inspiring book, the book, The Queendom Within, and I read it, and it's inspiring women to live their dreams, and there are a lot of very practical exercises in there. So I thought it would be cool to invite Heidi here because, she's a leadership and holistic health coach, and she wants to really, empower women to lead with impact and at the same time, increase their well-being and also live a healthy life. And I think that's what we all want, right, Heidi? And she has a podcast on her own where she also invites health practitioners and also a nutrition coach. Yeah, where you talk about the same topic, about well-being, nutrition, and also intuitive living. So you're just the perfect guest on the Energy On Show, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you.
Oh, thank you. What a wonderful introduction.
So I think we're all curious to know more about what you're doing. And in the course of the preparation, we thought, that self-care is very important for you. And I think, honestly, it should be important for all of us. But, with our busy lifestyle, sometimes, everything else is more important, but our self-care. And so I was just wondering, how, was this always important for you? Or, did something happen in your life that you kind of started taking care of yourself and your health and, your well-being?
It wasn't always, it wasn't always important, to be very honest. So I've had the typical day of me 15 years ago, looked like me rushing to work, maybe getting up a little bit later, snoozing 5 times. The first thing I had was a coffee in the office, then maybe a sugary snack around 10, and an occasional lunch, let's put it like that. But there was definitely an energy low in the afternoon, so very typical for most people in the office. And then it was again something snacking. Sometimes it was fruits, to be honest, or nuts, but primarily, given that I worked at a chocolate company at that time, it was very tempting, exactly. And then later at night, some sort of pasta, perhaps a glass of red wine, getting into bed too late, and the whole cycle continued. And so there wasn't a lot of awareness of how I'm feeling, what is good for me, what isn't. And then in 2013, I had a severe exhaustion. So I was really extremely tired, physically also weak, and couldn't perform at the level that I was expecting of me, or that I knew that I could perform. And at that time I loved my job. So it wasn't something where I felt I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time, quite the opposite. But at a pure physical level, I just couldn't sustain that lifestyle anymore. So it was out of necessity that I had to change my lifestyle. And ultimately, I was quite lucky that I got diagnosed fairly quickly on something that's called leaky gut. And usually that's not common for people to identify or find out so early in the process. And I could take steps right away to recover. And it was a journey of, I would say, 1.5 to 2 years until I fully felt back into the energy and the power that I wanted to have and that I knew that I could deliver. And it was fun back then, fun or strange from one angle, because I had a little bit accepted the fact that exhaustion is somehow the new normal. And I think, like many people these days, feel, okay, living a stressful life requires some sacrifices, and that means I'm not fulfilled anymore, I'm not happy, I have headache and things like that. So there are a lot of little symptoms that accumulate over the time that people somehow take for granted or say it's normal. And when I spoke to a doctor back then, and I said, well, I'm turning 30 now, is that not the way it should be? It's going downhill from here. And he said, oh, no, not at all. This is not how it should be. And that was a real eye-opening moment, that I have a lot of responsibility as well for the state of energy that I'm in, and that there are a million of different tricks and tools I can apply to get into a better state.
Okay, so Heidi, thank you so much for sharing. And I was, just wondering, there is the first step is being aware. Your energy was decreasing, and then you try to find out what it is, and then then the second step is then that you really need to change something. So how did you do that? Did you have like a coach or support, or did you develop some own technique? So what did you do?
Well, I went through the typical change circle or curve, and it started with denial, to be honest. So I was aware something's wrong, but I was so pissed with this whole thing, because I felt I want to do something great with my life, and I want to be full of energy, and I can't believe that this is happening to me. And in parallel to the illness, there was a 12-year relationship that broke up. And so I was in a place where I wanted to somehow prove to the world and to myself that I can re-emerge from this emotional, a difficult time in a wonderful way. And knowing that now I have to start really from basics when it comes to nutrition, I didn't accept it in the first place. And the doctor then said to me, okay, if you're not taking sick leave, then we'll see each other at hospital in 6 months' time. And even that wasn't enough for me to really change things instantly. It took me another 2 months until I accepted the fact that I really have to fundamentally change my lifestyle. So denial was the first stage. And then I felt, okay, if that's a clear weakness of mine, self-care, let's turn it into strength, and let's apply all the things that I usually do when I want to reach a goal to this area of my life. And that is commitment and getting the best support that I can. So I asked a lot of people what I can do and should do. And I was really working over two years, I would say, with all kinds of therapists, coaches, and including the fact that I started my first nutrition training primarily for myself, because I said, if that is something that is a make or break for my life, for my career, then I better find out what I need to know about all of this. And that's when I started my first training back home in Vienna.
Wow. So I think that's really a big step up, but then you're probably very disciplined, and it seems that you're very, very dedicated to really kind of make this happen once you realize it doesn't have to be like this. Yeah. And so in a way you got all the support. You thought they were kind of the experts and could help you, but then you went kind of also down the route that you wanted to know on your own, right? And
definitely, yes.
To figure out, so in a way, asking other people was kind of the first quick fix, and then of course you want to be your own coach, or yeah, but in a way, if it's referring to your body, you're always the expert, nobody else, right?
Yes, but the interesting thing is also that I had to learn, because during the training, I was applying everything that I learned. And also I was really diligently listening to my coaches and to the therapist. And I was a good student, I would say, of all the tips and tricks. And there came a point when things improved, but they only improved to a certain level. And then one teacher, actually, I was highly frustrated, and we were always having the sessions at the weekend. And I said, I do everything you tell me, and I still feel there is something missing. And then she said to me, you know what? Now perhaps is the time to forget about all the things that you've learned here. And it's about trust. It's about connecting with your body. And it's about also allowing the change and the healing capacities to come from within. And that was such a wow moment for me, because back then I was very in my head, very analytical, very feeling the body is something functional. If I do ABC, what's in the books, then the result needs to be what they promised me. And so this element of there is something else, there is another dimension, there is the wisdom of the body, etc. That's something that I had to learn. And interestingly, coming from one of the teachers, that was the credibility I think that I needed. If that had someone else had told me, probably I would have ignored that advice.
Wow, but that's so, thank you so much for sharing, because I think this is really important. That of course there's so much information out there, but what I see with energy work, we are all unique, and we're all special, and not only we, but also our bodies. And you really have to figure out what's working for your body, and your body is the expert. If you start listening, then you kind of get the information. Yeah,
exactly. And that's also why these days I talk about intuitive eating, etc. But I also know that this is then, let's say, the gold plating. Of course, there are a lot of basics and foundations that you need to get right first on a physical level, and there are rules that are good for every human being. And I think those things are good to start with, and because they're also easy to implement. But then at a later stage comes this moment when you say, okay, I have the basics right. And now let's be a bit more courageous and daring, and connect with our bodies.
so when we see you now, like full of energy and sparkling, so what's self-care for you now, and how do you practice it?
Well, self-care is woven into my everyday, and it's definitely more than a bubble bath at the end of a long week. So I see three dimensions ultimately. So there is the physical, the emotional, and the mental dimension at which you can practice self-care. Then you also have you move towards or you move away from something. You can increase or decrease something. That's another dimension. And then there is the short term, and then there is the long term dimension of that. And what do I mean by that? Like on a physical level, for example, I realized that milk in coffee isn't good for me. So through tests, but also through self-experimentation and really feeling that my skin isn't good, etc. And I loved my milky, creamy coffee at the office. It was like super important for me. And then I thought, okay, but long term, if that's not good for me, then I have to rewire my brain or love something else. And that is black coffee or black tea without milk. And I still have it once in a while, but as a treat. But in general, then I said, okay, long-term self-care means I skip the milk, and not because my doctor tells me, but because I know it's better for me in the long run. And it took me probably 30 coffees to start to like black coffee, and now I love it. But it's those little things that I also understand as self-care. Or physically, of course, movement. And I try to move every morning. I have my morning routine. We'll probably be talking about that a little bit later. But on a mental level, for example, is also when I feel I'm not focused anymore, or I feel that my thoughts are far too distracted and my attention span is too short. Then I sometimes reduce my digital consumption, because, of course, being on social media all the time also distracts and decreases your mental capacity. So it's a lot to do with awareness, checking in with yourself several times a day, saying, how do I feel? How is my body? How are my thoughts? How are emotions? And then taking actions. And that can be small and tiny. And it's usually in a way that other people might not even notice. But this looking after yourself in a self-supportive way, I think that's the important thing. And also the energy where this is coming from, in a way of, I want to be good to myself. I want to be my best friend, rather than I have to do this because someone tells me, or I've read it in magazine, or the coach says so. Really coming from that, what do I need to feel better in the next hour, for example?
Yeah, I fully agree. It can be really like small things. And I noticed by myself, like sometimes, you just want to, especially when you're working on a PC, or you just want to finish something. But then I realize I feel uncomfortable. There's so much pressure. You just want to get it done. And then it's just better you really just stop for 2 minutes and just get up, or even just, go to the toilet or whatever, and then come back, because then you continue working with a different
definitely, especially when it comes to work, taking micro breaks between tasks, or getting some oxygen, things like that, and doing that before you really need it. I think that's the key. It's not, you don't take the action when it's too late, let's put it like that. In the same way as you should drink before you're really thirsty. So it's like making sure that the foundation of your everyday life is strong, and ultimately that means you are far more resilient in the long run as well.
And I also love what you said about your story about the coffee with the milk. And yes, sometimes we really like some things, but even if we know that they're not good for us. And I heard, was it at the conference or so, and then somebody said, they was speaking about nutrition as well, and she said, do I love myself enough to not eat this donut?
Yeah.
And I really,
yes.
Yeah, and it's so much, it's just a reframing. If you point it in you're not, not eating it, but you're committing to something higher or long term, as you said before. And that's I think it's also this powerful, how you said you're going from something away, but moving to something. And I think moving to something is so much easier than, going away from something.
Yeah. And I'm definitely one for enjoying food, the social component of it, and having treats. So, because you mentioned self-discipline before, but I think the key, or what I focus on, the daily habits, really are healthy choices. So I've somehow set up my life in a way that my daily choices are the good ones. And then on top, I can have a treat, but it's not an everyday thing. And then it doesn't become the feeling of, oh my God, I have to sacrifice for the rest of my life something that I love. That's not the thing that I want, or that I also teach my coachees. So it's really about being very conscious and creating and designing your day in a way that it is good for you, because about 6 hours a day, we are on autopilot, and really rewiring your brain in a way that those choices that you do automatically are the good ones.
Yeah, I think it's that's exactly what you pointed out, that there always shouldn't be a room for an exemption, right? So don't be kind of too militant on something, because then it's really hard. But if every once in a while I can still treat myself, then it has a completely different energy. And then it's you who decides, and I think it also gives you some power.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about the physical dimension here, and maybe let's briefly talk about the emotional dimension as well. So If I feel that a person somehow always leaves me in a very strange space after a conversation, then it's also for me part of self-care to say, maybe my interactions with him or her, I'm going to reduce. And the opposite, if there is someone who is exciting, fascinating, lifting me up, and I feel good around them, then I'm going to seek their company more often. And of course, you have to be fine-tuned or attuned with yourself to, first of all, notice what's happening with me when I'm in interaction with someone else. And then secondly, also have the courage to either set the boundaries or go into a relationship with a bit more intensity.
That's so true. Yeah, so yeah, in a way, observing more, but also the environment, but because it's not only your own energy, but of course we always, also
Exactly.
influenced by the energy around us and people around us. Yeah, and yeah, you mentioned already that you kind of developed your morning routine. Can you take us a little bit into your routine? What are you doing? And how long does it take? And yeah.
I think back in 2013, when I developed it for myself, it took around an hour. And these days it can be as short as 1 minute, but there is definitely always something that I do. And I also have on my podcast episode 44, meditation for the morning. And there are 7 steps in there, or 7 areas that I usually go through. So that's something that I can recommend. But what does it usually include? So there is always an element of movement, whether that is just simply movement on the yoga mat or some DVD that I do, or walking, some sort of physical activity. Then there is stillness as well. So that might be just closing my eyes for 5 minutes and also checking in with myself. What's the energy that I woke up with today? How do I feel today? And sometimes that means I need to dive deeper into what's going on, or on other days it just means, oh, I know I'm in a good place, and that's wonderful. So sometimes journaling, so that's something I used to do quite a lot, not so often anymore, but I did that daily in the past, and it really helped me through some very difficult times, because that just means I get all my emotions and thoughts out on paper right in the morning, and I can really start on an empty page, so to say. And that feeling of enjoying something, and back then I introduced breakfast as something that I really honor, and feeling that I have a bit of time for myself and enjoyment right in the morning just gave me, let's say, confidence and calm that I could tackle the day with all the craziness that it brought about. And back then, when I was a spokesperson for a big company, there were so many things happening that were unexpected. And I felt if I already have fueled up my tank when it comes to joy and relaxation and stillness, then whatever comes my way for the next 10 or 12 hours, I'm far more equipped to handle that. And I see it with some of my clients now. When they start work right away in the morning, first thing they take the phone, and then they are completely exhausted at 10, 11 at night and collapse on the sofa. And of course, then they take a sweet, and because that's the only treat or the only joy they feel they deserve from that day. And I just turned it upside down and said, I want to have that joy moment in the morning, and then I just get then whatever happens.
Wow. Yeah, and I think it's very powerful to have something that lifts you up. Yeah, but I don't have. I have to admit, I don't have the same routine. There are some different elements, and sometimes I feel more like doing this, and sometimes I even do it like not right after getting up, but because of family. So once they're out of the house, or I'm in the train to work, then I do it there. But yeah, it has something. I think
But
it's
I think that's so beautiful what you say in terms of it's a free flow, and that's also a very feminine quality to really tap in what you need. And I think it depends on where you are in your life. Back when I had my illness, I really needed structure, and this male energy of those are the things that I do for 10 minutes, then that's the next task for 50 minutes, to really get into a habit. And once that's established, and once it's somehow second nature to you to check in with yourself regularly, then it's far easier to go into that feminine flow thing and say, oh, today I feel like dancing in the morning or chanting mantras, which I love to do as well. And then it's beautiful, because then you somehow dance with life, so to say, rather than sticking strictly to a schedule. But it really depends on where you are in life and what you need from a morning routine. So I think both have a right to exist. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, that's right. But I think, the most powerful thing for me is that, as you already said too, you have like this toolbox. You have several tools, and then you just know, now I'm using this, or maybe sometimes you don't have that much time, but this one is a quick fix. And so it's good to have, or to know, several tools. Exactly. And then apply them when you need them.
And the 1 minute version of this whole thing is gratitude, which I think is such a powerful tool. If I really have no time, or don't want to take the time, then sometimes even in bed, I just keep the eyes closed and think of 3 things that I'm grateful for, 3 very specific things, either what happened the day before, the night before, or general things. And that is, I think, a wonderful mini thing to start the day.
Yeah, I do the gratitude when I fall asleep.
That's nice too.
When I'm lying in bed, and then kind of thinking what I'm grateful for this day, and for years, no, decades, I had so many problems with falling asleep. But now that I do my energy work, and especially with this gratitude thing, I just kind of a blink of a second. So they're probably not even making 3 things, because sometimes I've been falling asleep before.
After the first one.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah, but but then you're falling kind of asleep with this energy, and then you also wake up with this kind of energy, and that's what I found very, very powerful too. So do you also have an evening routine, or is your focus on the day?
I think I'm quite strong on my morning routine, and I still want to develop an evening routine, I have to admit. So at the evenings I try to slow down. I try to do things that are not that demanding, and it's sometimes difficult because I love working at night, and of course that's not good with the screen on, etc. But so that's a little bit my addiction, the evening shifts. That's something that I'm working on.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I think when it's so quiet and dark out there, especially when I'm writing, then it's kind of like
your bubble.
Safe bubble. Yeah, it's a bubble, and I'm in this bubble, and I'm just working, and I really love it. Yeah, and sometimes just time flies by, and so I have the same thing. But then I really also say, but in a way that's me. And if you don't do it every evening, maybe only every second, then it's okay. But also being aware of your own strengths, and consider them as well. So I'm trying not to be too hard to myself. If it feels comfortable, then it's also okay.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the first rules of self-care: kindness towards oneself. And that's easier said than done, but
it never ends.
Never ends. There is every day an opportunity to practice.
Yes, exactly. And can you kind of share with us your favorite tool, that you use most often, or what you think is most powerful?
I think the most powerful tool is tapping into your heart, or activating your heart. We have 3 brains: the head brain, the gut brain, that I learned a lot and wrote about a lot as well. And the third one is heart intelligence. And if there are moments during the day when I'm taking a break or when I'm not feeling well, like really visualizing that there might be some light in my heart, or even a rose and a rose is opening, like really activating or sending energy, attention to the heart. That's another instant quick fix, I think, for happiness, to be honest. Takes a bit of practice, doesn't come so easily if that's not something you're familiar with, but it's really something, yeah, that you can do everywhere, whether you are in a traffic jam or waiting for the bus or in a meeting. So I love those things that actually no one really notices it, but that have a huge impact on you right away.
Wow, I love that. I'm definitely gonna try it. So I don't know it this way, but I also think what you said is so valuable because I'm somebody who really doesn't like waiting, neither for the bus nor for other people, nor in the long queue in front of the cashier. But I shifted that because now I see it as a quality time for myself where I can do my energy work.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not, oh, wow, why it's so slow, this queue. So now it's, wow, now I have 5 minutes just and nobody's noticing that I can work on my energy. It's me time actually, right? And
And you get out of the supermarket in full glow and happiness.
yes, yeah, not stressed, but then I really, it's just the way you look at it. Some things you just can't change, but what you always can change, how you look at them and how you perceive them. And that was such a shift in my life. Because there are so many times you have to wait somewhere, and that really stressed me out when before I started energy working. So, and if you look back now, you said your journey started in 2013, and now it's 10 years now. So what do you think? You already mentioned a couple of things, but what has really changed in your life?
I think the main difference is that I experience life in a different way. And what do I mean by that? Big word. But I feel far more in tune with myself. I feel far more connected with the universe, if I'm allowed to use that word here.
Always.
And there is more fulfillment, you see, even in the simplest things. So before I was chasing things, and there is nothing wrong with that, and I loved chasing my ambitions, but it was always coming from a place of scarcity, and something's not right, and there was a lot of drive in order to get away from a life that I didn't like to something that I hoped I could aspire or achieve. So I was always living from that, something is not okay now. And that has completely flipped in a way. So I feel I love my life. I have, a wonderful experience every day. And of course, there are things that I don't like. There are dreams that I have. There are goals and aspirations, and I'm working towards them, but with a very, very different energy than in the past. And I think that has to do with that self-awareness, with the kindness, with also a different kind of consciousness, I think, that came as a result of practicing those things for years and years.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. And and it's still, and the path needs to be continued. Yes.
Definitely. And there is always a lot to learn. So I'm far from, I also feel there is a lot for me to still discover and explore and learn. But at the same time, it's more curiosity, a curiosity for life, rather than I desperately need to know because I want to know everything. So it's a kind of a different quality now.
Yeah, and I think it's also what we always forget, or I don't know if everybody, but for me, it's looking back and then, yeah, pat yourself on the shoulder and saying, this is everything already achieved and changed and shifted. And also, in a way reflect your own development, as you already said. Yeah, and I think this is so important to value what you already did and then achieved and how much you changed. Because when you speak about how your life was 10 years before, and if I look at you now, there is kind of a huge difference. We can feel that.
Yeah. And I think it's also in terms of the small and big choices in life. In the past, when I perhaps more often thought, how do I need to change so that I fit into this group of people, that I fit into that job? What do I need to change for me that I can perform here or there? Now it's the other way around, that I think, okay, I know who I am, I accept and love myself the way I am, and what do I need in my life? What can I draw into my life? What are the people, the projects, the brands that I want to surround myself with? So it's a different way of looking at everything, I would say. And that's a self-care tool in its essence, in a way, I think.
Okay, thank you so much, Heidi. And there's one question. I think I already know the answer, but this is a question I'm asking everybody at kind of the end of the Energy On show. And this is, what gives you energy?
Well, let's start with the 3 dimensions. So the physical one is, I love nutritious food, like good, fresh, clean eating is something that I definitely love. On a mental level, inspirational talks, fascinating books, great conversations. And on an emotional level, of course, kind people, my dog, and wonderful connections, loving and caring connections with others.
Yeah, relationships are kind of really the most underestimated and probably most important things in our lives anyway.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something that I've also learned at the holistic health training that I did, where they looked into the blue zones, so where people lived 100 years or longer, and they identified that being part of a community, or this feeling of belonging, is a very core health enhancing thing. So as you say, it's often underestimated, but super important.
So glad that you're now kind of a part of the Energy On community.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a wonderful conversation.
Yes, I loved it. I learned a lot. I'm definitely going to try that one with the rose. Yes. And so, if somebody wants to work with you, how can they reach you?
HeidiHauer.com is my website. You can have a free discovery session with me online. So just go under coaching, and then you'll find all the links. And I love the one-on-one coachings, either in person or online. So that's the cornerstone of my work.
Well, yes, definitely we'll put the links in the show notes, and then people can reach out to you. And thank you so much, Heidi.
Thank you.
Having you. And all the best. And looking forward to your new routines and power tools to hear about them.
Thank you. And a joyful rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Yes. So thank you so much. Energy On, and all the best from Heidi and Cornelia.